everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my excessively late review of the last 3 episodes of Andor. Honestly, at this point, I really just did it for myself because I was like, just for prosperity and just the sake of the future. If anyone, I always think of that, like, if anyone decides to randomly come across my channel, they might be interested. Who knows? I want to kind of just do it for myself as well, to just have my thoughts out there. It's been a super long time, obviously, since the episodes aired. It's been longer since they aired, but it's been a long time since I watched them as well. So I'm going to kind of just go through what I remember. Didn't bother checking. Don't remember title episodes. None of that crap. It don't matter. I was like, it's just getting done how it's getting done. I'm not putting in extra work for my already super late review. Life's been crazy, which I actually kind of talk about, because some things were happening around the time I saw the last 3 episodes. So starting with the prison break. Great episode. It was super cool. It was that thing where when me watching it in the 3 chunks, it was like, oh, okay. I was hoping that he'd get arrested. Then, there'd be 3 episodes, but it's technically like 4 episodes for the prison. But the prison break was super cool. I really enjoyed that. Just the way that they did everything, where it was like, just that, especially even going through, every episode of them in the prison, and it's like, all right, he wants to get out, and it's like, look, I'm trying to escape. He had his buddy where it was like, look, we're going to figure this plan out. And then, of course, as things went along, it was like, well, what was that weird thing that happened the other day? And then, of course, the older guy dies on their team. So the medic comes out and it's like, what was the weird thing that happened? Everyone's dead. Like a dude went out, he came back in, word got out, they just fried everybody, nobody's leaving, it's time to go. So they come up with the plan, they know what does and does not work, and then when the dude dies, and it's like, look, we have until tomorrow. I need you, like, obviously, Andor is talking to whoever Andy Serkis's character is, because I can't remember, but he's like, I need you to be the one to do it, because no one's going to follow me, but I'm going to try to get out of here, like, but you're the one who can rally everybody else, like, it's the only way it works. And it was just like, okay, it's time. They had their moment at night where Andor told everybody what was happening, and then it was like, okay, look, no more counting shifts. Don't bother telling the other shifts, because they'll find out soon enough. Whether we live or die, everybody's going to figure out what's happened. So this is what we're going to do. One last night, one last time. When that thing comes down, it's go time. Andor goes in, he's doing the thing, and it's like, oh God, I really hope this works at the last minute. It works. And then a bunch of people get killed anyway. Like, there were quite a few people where it was like, oh, I thought they were going to make it. His buddy that had the plan with him the whole time, first person out, or at least like the second person. I think like 2 or 3 of the people at their table ended up getting killed off. I think it was like Andor and maybe 2 other people ended up getting out. I know he got out with the one guy, and that guy, I think I mentioned this in my last review, that guy is actually in Rogue One. They got that actor back, which I thought was a cool thing. I found that out, of course, from other reviews, because I didn't remember that. But I was like, oh, that's super cool. So, of course, they end up escaping together. But it was really cool. I was like, man, it was surprising how many people, unfortunately, ended up being taken down, as far as, the characters we really knew and recognized. But then it's like, look, this is what's happening. They got into the central command. It's like, shut off all the power. Here's what's happening. He does the speech. He actually says, he takes, a bit of Andor's speech to him, and is like, I'd rather die, trying to fight them than living, giving them what they want, which, we'll talk about at the end. We'll do it at the end with the season finale, but fantastic ending sequence for the series, at least for the first season. But the way it was handled was so cool. And it was like, I don't, who's going to live, who's going to die. They get to the edge, and it's like, they, especially that top down view is super cool when they open up like all the main doors, and you just see like this full circle. And it's like, that's not the only exit. There are multiple entrances to this prison. There are people that they help save, basically, that they'll never see ever. It's the galaxy. It's not even just Earth. Obviously there's not Earth at all, but it's the galaxy. Like, those people were just gone. Like, and it was just, you see it from the top down, and it's just people swimming and just everyone trying to do what they can to escape. And they get to the edge, and Andy Serkis is like, yeah, I can't swim. And it's like, what? It's like, I can't swim. And they don't even get to have that conversation, because someone knocks Andor off. And so he's just falling through the skies, like, he's up there and he can't swim. Who knows what happened? So that I thought was interesting. I doubt he was the only person on the entire thing that couldn't swim. So I'm sure there are other people who took over. But then at the same time, it's like, well, some of those people need to be able to fly a ship. But at the same time, none of the ships are on that location. If a ship comes in, they're going to have to kill those people and take the ship, if the ship even stays. So it's like, the people that couldn't swim and were stuck there, I'm very curious. I doubt we'll get any resolution on that, but it's like, if you couldn't swim, I don't think you could make it. There's nothing to do, because once they call in reinforcements, that's it. You can't, even if you could take down a couple ships, like, they're just going to drop the troopers off, and then the ship flies away anyway. So you're still in the same position, even if you keep taking them down. And eventually they would just bomb the whole effing place anyway, or just leave it alone. But It was interesting. Of course, they escape. They, for a minute, get captured by these two aliens who are talking. And I had to put subtitles on because I was like, I genuinely cannot tell if he is talking in an alien language or if he's just saying stuff weird. And he was just saying stuff in a weird way. And plus the voice that he had. So the way he was talking, I was like, I honestly can't tell if there are real words here or not. So I had to put subtitles on for everything that guy was saying. But he was like, the Empire messed up the water. We can't really fish anymore. And it's like, hey, we didn't want to work for the Empire. We were forced to. And ultimately, they let them go free. It's like, hey, we hate the Empire too. Like, they're about to get all chopped up and killed. And it's just like, no biggie, dude. Like, we hate the Empire too. Let's get you guys out of here. And that was it. They go back to the spot. Andor goes to his room. Fortunately, nobody cleans above, like if you can't see it, it doesn't get cleaned. That's just a real life thing. So of course, nobody cleaned up there. He was able to sneak in. They had the little couple just having a midday nap, cuddled together. He got his goods. He took off. He gave the dude a gun when he was like, hey, I got to get out of here. Like, we need to kind of spread the word. It's better if we split up. So they separate. And then, in that moment, like right after the dude leaves, he gets on the phone. Or no, I think he found it on the phone first. And then the guy told him he had to leave. So it was just like this moment where they'd gone through this, that, them hanging on the side. And it's like, I can't even feel my fingers. And then he was like, just tell me they're leaving. Cause that was like the one thing he had to like keep him going just an extra couple of seconds. Like, tell me they're leaving. And that'll, keep him holding on. It's like, they're leaving. So I thought that was kind of funny. But he found out that his mom passed away. And then the dude, he leaves and he's just by himself again. And he's just like kind of looking out on the sunset. And so, of course, we go into the next episode and it's like, everyone figures this out. We have Cyril, who finds out from the general guy, who apparently is just like a factory worker at this point, still on the planet. He's like, hey, Andor's mom died. Figured you'd want to know. So, of course, he ends up going to the planet. I don't remember. I don't know why. I only remember Cyril because of Archer, because of Cyril Figgis. That's the only reason I keep remembering Cyril's name. And Andor is obviously the main character. I also remember BMO because BMO, I think it is. I think they call him BMO, B3EMO or something, like B3MO, something like that. But BMO is also the name of like the little video game console in Adventure Time. So I'm always like, I think they call him that, but I could also just be assuming that because of my time with Adventure Time. But either way, I'm gonna call him BMO for now. The way that was handled, I thought was really interesting. So we have him going there because he got the information. Of course, all the villains got the information. Everybody got the info at the same time. And it's like, okay, well, he's going because he wants to do his thing to catch Andor. We have the woman who is doing her duty where it's like, okay, we know that he's going to be there. Let's kind of put on a show of force and kind of just wait it out and let's see what happens. She had a very interesting position in like the last two episodes because what she was doing was counter to what they wanted to do on the planet, where it's like, we have to do things this way. And she's like, nope, we're going to do it this way. And everything, like them kind of butting heads is what kept screwing things up because they knew where Andor was, which I was still confused as to how they figured that out. Like, I know they showed somebody looking up, but I'm like, unless I missed it at a glance, I don't think they showed him like dug down at the last second. They just showed somebody look over there. And I was like, well, that kind of doesn't make any sense. Like, they still didn't actually see him. But like I said, I must have missed it because I'm like, someone just randomly looking up there. Unless they just thought about it like, well, what if he's over there? But they were like, they knew where he was. So I was just confused. I was like, how did they figure out where he was at? That sort of thing. And he knew that he was captured as well, which, it's just that everybody's, intuitive with the Force in some way, I guess. I don't know. But he was up there. And so, this is during the part where they have his mother's funeral. Like, they're kind of going through that process. And BMO was so sad, and he was just like, he didn't want to leave. He didn't want to like power on or anything like that. And it was like, he's so sad. Like, he's the most emotional droid I think we've had. And I think he's officially taken place as like my second favorite droid that I've, ever experienced in Star Wars. Number one, of course, is BD-1 from Jedi Fallen Order. And I cannot wait for Survivor. So, more BD, always more great Star Wars as far as I'm concerned. So I think BMO is officially injured like my number 2, and BB-8's been dropped down to like number 3. He's cool, but it's like, like the BD-1's just amazing. And BMO had the emotions, and he was like actually just like the young brother. And I was like, I swear he has like the most emotions of any droid we've seen. And that's fun. I liked it. So I thought that was cool. It was sad, of course. And then, excuse me. Then of course we have the actual funeral procession where they have everyone. It was very much like a Mardi Gras type of thing where they had the full, it wasn't as celebratory. It was just a band going down. But they do like the full march through the streets, and then they talk about the process of being bricked and like you become a brick and stuff like that, which I watched a couple of reviews. People pointed this out. I think she would have been honored by the fact that her brick was totally used to like hit an Imperial officer in the face. I'm like, I'm pretty sure, considering her whole speech was like, they said they wanted her to say, fuck the Empire, which I thought was interesting. And they, Disney was like, maybe don't do that. But her saying like, fight the Empire. So I was like, I agree with those people that thought that. I was like, yeah, them using her break to like hit an Imperial officer in the face. I think she would have appreciated that. But whole funeral procession. During that scene, so this is where like the real life stuff comes in. Super quick thing. So at this point, when I was watching these last 3 episodes, my grandmother was really sick in the hospital. And I went to see her that day before I watched, because I watched all 3 episodes at once. So the first episode, Prison Break, no big deal, nothing emotional, anything. When they did that funeral procession, I cried so hard. Unfortunately, my grandmother did pass away. I'm sure somebody's curious. So it was obviously, it's sad. It sucks. And that was definitely like the big cry moment for me. And that was before she even passed. It was just, going to the hospital and just been there before, and you know how it is. So when that happened, I can tell you, I know they played music and I know they went out the door. When they hit the door and that music started, I cried super. I literally cried the entire time the music played. And when the music stopped, I like composed myself, and then I watched the rest of the episode. So honestly, I didn't see anything during the funeral thing because I was crying too hard, but I know it happened and it got me. So I was like extra sad because of real life stuff. So I cried like that. I hard cried too. I hard cried so hard during that sequence. And then I watched the rest of the episode and I really enjoyed it. Crazy fight. A buttload of people. Once again, a lot like the prison thing. So many people got killed off. It was crazy. The one guy who got tortured, his son threw the bomb, and then that just set everything off. Like it was insane. Like they were just hitting people. I mean, the one obviously, hit the dude with the brick. I think he also just straight up Spartan kicked somebody straight to the ground, which I thought was super funny because that was like a straight kick. And then it was just, utter chaos after that. And then they were like open fire. People were just getting blasted left and right. Like it was insane how ridiculous things ended up getting. So I love the way it was handled. It was just like pure chaos. And it was like, I did not expect things, to really go down this way. But it was definitely fun to watch. And then everyone's trying to figure out like, okay, well, what do we do? Andor, of course, is obviously back. Cyril ends up saving the woman who's been like, the big villain of the series at this point. And he ends up saving her by, he picked up a blaster and was like, I'll take care of her. And then he took her into the other room. They were definitely super close. It was like they're doing like that weird stuff. Like everyone says it's like Cyril's like a simp for her. And it's funny, is like, I don't think he's a simp for her. I think he's just socially awkward in general. And I personally, I don't see him as a simp for her. I just see it as like, he knows that she's the only person that is like really trying to get Andor. And that's like his main thing. Like if it was a guy, I think it would be the same. But I think because they made it a woman, it definitely has that view to it where it's like he's madly in love with her and stuff. But I think it would have been the same thing if it was a guy, where it was like, look, I'm just trying to do this. Like, please, like, I know how to get to Andor. Like, you're the only person that seems to truly care. But because they made it a woman, and his character is the way he is in general, like even, being talked down to by his mom, all that stuff, it definitely makes him seem like a full-on space simp. And that's just how it is. Like, it's just the way they wrote the character and the fact that it's a woman. Like, those two things combined, he comes off as a simp for sure. And it's really funny to watch. But I'm like, I think it's still just the Andor thing. He's like, you're the only person that really wants to do good. That's why I want to help you so bad, because nobody else gives a crap. So it just kind of comes out that way because, he's doing that, and it's his superior officer is a woman. So it's like, he may not be a simp, but simp-like tendencies for sure. Because he's really trying to get Andor. And of course they fail again. And that's the way it has to be. But I like the way it was handled. We got our main couple of people that end up escaping on the ship towards the end of the episode, and they're kind of just gone. It's like, hey, Andor's going to find us. Like he'll find us. And it's like, yeah, of course. And then they take off on the ship, and then they're gone, and he has to take off as well. And it's like, okay, let's see what happens in season 2. And then we have that ending shot where it's like, we find out exactly what they're making. And they're building all those pieces they were making in the prison were little bits and pieces, like little sections to make the disc for the Death Star, like to specifically make the beam, which means that technically for a small brief period of time, Andor helped create the thing that ultimately ended up killing him in Rogue One. And I was like, man, that's a full circle moment. Also, the visual was fantastic where they had the Death Star. And I think they did it where the Death Star was at the bottom, and then it was like the laser was pointing up. It may have been at the up pointing down. I can't really remember now. But the way it was done was such a cool shot. And then it's just like the laser pieces all separated out. And I was like, that is sick. So I love the way that they did like literally the final shot. And of course, there's a bunch of other stuff that happened outside of Andor, because I skipped over all the Mon Mothma stuff. All of that was really entertaining. She went down a super dark path where it was like she meets the gangster, talks to him, and is like, I'm not going to give my daughter up for marriage. And go the old ways and stuff like that. And it was like, what, the next episode, it was like, yeah, she's doing this thing. And then her sister comes in, it's like, please tell me you're not, accepting offers. It's like, yeah, we are. It was like, okay, that's interesting. She said that it was funny because she said like her daughter wanted to go kind of the more traditional ways. And I'm just like, would she have fought it more though? That's kind of the question, because I'm like, that's pretty much been a thing throughout the whole season with her character and her daughter and her dad kind of pitting her, or her husband, Mon Mothma's husband, pitting her daughter against her pretty much, because he kind of is like, hey, do whatever you want, honey. And then he kind of turns her against Mon Mothma. And so it's really interesting where it's like, she didn't want to do it. And she said that her daughter wanted to go down that path in general. Like, I couldn't really stop her, things like that. But I'm like, I don't know. She probably would have fought more if it weren't for the fact that she wouldn't have gained from it. Because I'm like, I don't think she pushed for it, because she did say like, she wanted to go down this path and stuff. And that makes sense based on everything we saw as far as her daughter's character and just kind of the way things were kind of playing out there. But at the same time, I'm like, I think we all can tell it's like, well, part of you kind of let it slip by though without any objection, because you knew that it would technically help you, and you can just so happen to bring someone along who would help do that. So I don't know. She's working with that gangster, and we'll see how that plays out, going into season 2. But I'm excited for all of that. God, we had, what is that dude's name? I can't think of the actor's name or the character name, but obviously the guy that hired Andor, he also has a great moment where he makes his full-on decision, where we see how dark things can get with his character being like kind of the focal point of the show, as far as, keeping these different little sections of the rebellion together, or, attempting to. He talks with Saw Gerrera. I remembered. I was going to say the actor, but he talks to Saw Gerrera again. And it's like, he's like, look, I'm going to team up with the dude. Let's do it. Like, we'll do it. And it's like, change your plans. We're not going to do that because the Empire knows that he's there. And it's like, well, why didn't you tell him? I couldn't. It's like, that's fascinating. And it turns out, of course, he had a guy on the inside. It ended up being one of the Imperial officers that we've seen in multiple episodes. He's actually yet another spy working for the Resistance. And it was like, this is good. He's like, look, he wanted to get out. He's like, look, I got kids and stuff. I'm trying to leave. And it's like, what have you given up? And then he has a great speech about like, I've given up everything. It's like, I need your help. I just need you to stick with me. And so, of course, it's like, I'd rather sacrifice 30 men than sacrifice you for the intel that you can get me in the future. And those are the types of tough decisions that he has to make. Because it's like, I can't really just, give him the information, because they need to escape. And then things are back to being weird and suspicious. Like, they'll know I have a mole. They got to die. That's it. They have to die. So that was tough. My mom was doing some crazy tough stuff as well with her daughter. And we'll just see what happens as far as season 2 is concerned. I'm hyped for it. I'm very excited. I think it's a great show. I think it's definitely one of my favorite Star Wars shows for sure. I don't think it has a moment that I'll go back to specifically, like, excuse me, where I'm just like, that one moment is like one of the coolest things I've ever seen in Star Wars. Definitely some great visuals. I love the music as well. Like the music that they had, like the club theme. I love that song. That's probably my favorite. But I don't think there's a moment specifically where I'm like, that is one of the greatest Star Wars moments just ever. But the series as a whole, I do think is definitely up there for sure. I think I would still personally probably prefer The Mandalorian. Super biased, solely based on the fact that Mandalorians are my favorite thing. And now, especially now, going into season 3, they're getting like full on, like, we're literally going to Mandalore. And it's like, I thought that was a pipe dream until like the season 1 finale. And they were like, here's the Darksaber. And I cried. So I was like, ultra biased. Mandalorian is just like my favorite thing. Especially the Darksaber. Like, it's my favorite people in Star Wars, the Mandalorians. And at first it was just a Mandalorian. Episode 3 of season 1, still think of that. That is, for me, one of the greatest Star Wars moments ever. A bunch of Mandalorians helped a Mandalorian in a shootout, and they're flying around and shooting. Like, for me personally, that's one of the best. The Darksaber being revealed is one of the best. Like, that's my favorite weapon in all of Star Wars. So, Andor definitely one of the greatest shows, but there's not a moment to me that, even in the show itself, that sticks out like, holy crap, this thing is like just one of the greatest things we've ever seen in Star Wars. But the show definitely is. The show as a whole for sure is. And I'm, excuse me, I have cotton mouth. I took an edible before this. I didn't think it would kick in by the time I finished. That's probably what's happening there. So a little bit of cotton mouth, a little bit of cold. Um, but yeah, I think the show as a whole, for sure, is definitely one of the greatest things we've gotten in Star Wars ever. I'm super hyped for season two. I'm very curious how that's going to play out. K2SO, I think, has to show up in season two because that was kind of his buddy, and I'm curious about that because if that's his buddy, what happened to his brother? Like Bimo is basically his little brother. So I'm curious how those characters are going to fare in season two going into Rogue One because that's a big thing. Like he left everything behind, or he's just with them, um, with the rebellion. In Rogue One. So it's like, well, how far do things really go? It's the same for Mon Mothma. Honestly, we didn't even know she had a daughter, or we may have known she had a sister, but I don't think we knew that she had a daughter. So it's like, what happens with these characters? Like we see them, and it's like they're just in Star Wars, and they're just full on like, hey guys, I'm with the rebellion. I'm one of the like big people in the rebellion. I'm a leader. And then this show is like, this is why she got to that position where she's in the original trilogy, giving out plans to like an entire room of people. Like this is how Minnie Banthas died for this. Like she's like there's a reason that she's in that position to tell people this is who already sacrificed for what we're about to sacrifice. And it's because she already sacrificed. So I'm curious how she does, going into season two. Curious with Andor as well. But fantastic season finale. I love the 3-episode arcs. And of course, I still wish, that they released them like that because that's why I ultimately ended up watching them. That plus, just my time in general. But I felt like doing it as a movie version, it was great. Every time I watched it, it was like having a movie experience because I would just watch basically like 2.5 hours worth of Star Wars. And it was great Star Wars. So, you can binge watch it and it's amazing. You can watch it one at a time and it'll drive you nuts because I swear every cliffhanger was really good. And that was another thing where I was like, I want more so bad. And it's been a long time since every episode of a show has been that hard hitting of a cliffhanger where it's like, I need the next thing now. Like I have to see it. So they did a great job. All the writers, I think, did a fantastic job on the show. All the actors, everything was really cool. And they used real locations. I know that's been a big thing. I haven't had much of a problem with the volume like at all, but it like you can see it. Like when they're literally like walking across mountains and hills and stuff like that, and it's just a full-on location. It does make a difference for sure. And it definitely had that Rogue One vibe where it's like, here's like a still shot and it's just like a giant field with a couple characters. Like they did a lot of that where it just, this looks good. So it makes a difference. It definitely does stand out for sure. When you don't see the volume at all, or like maybe in a couple scenes, I'm sure they had it, somewhere in here. I didn't notice because I rarely do. A part of me does my best not to pay attention too much to how curved things look, because that's something that you can tell when things are like perfectly even in the background. It's probably the volume, because they did that in Obi-Wan when they're on not Coruscant, what is Alderaan. There are a couple scenes there and I didn't really notice it until someone pointed it out, and then I was like, oh yeah, I can see that. Like every time it's super symmetrical, and you like I said, for me, I don't really focus that much on the camera angles kind of repeating and stuff like that because they've always kind of done that. And even before the volume, like, there's only so many things you can do with a camera, and Star Wars is very specific. So for me, it was never too obvious, but then it's like, yeah, you can kind of tell here and there. But Andor, it was mostly just out in the world, real sets, or partial set, classic movie/TV stuff. But we'll see what they do for season two. I would hope that they keep kind of the same vibe and don't like shuttle it into the volume. I don't really see how they could. They'd have that volume packed, considering how many actors they always have on screen in this show. That's another thing. Like I don't see how they could do the volume too much with how many people they constantly have on screen. So looking forward to season two. Would love to know your thoughts on the entire season. Of course, the last 3 episodes that I just went over, the prison break, the shootout, the escape towards the end, even the literal final scene of the Death Star and stuff. We'd love to know your thoughts on all of that. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it, what you guys are looking forward to, or at least hoping for. Like I said, K2SO is like the one thing where I'm like, he has to show up. I'm sure Saw Gerrera will, of course, show up again. He's one of the weird characters that once he was introduced, he started popping up all over the place. Like in this specific era, he's in everything. It's kind of funny and it's a little weird at the same time. But once they made that character in this era, there's been so many shows in this time period where it's just like, let's do Saw Gerrera. He's wild. He can work with people, but then he's also really crazy. So you never know what's going to happen with the guy. So let's see. Oh, maybe we'll see why he ended up the way he did. Because when he was in Rogue One, he needed like that device to speak. Maybe we'll actually see that fight go down. So that's something that I think is a good theory. But either way, we'll love to know your thoughts. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.